Lay down, please. She's not going to lay down, which means that I'm going to have to start my video over because you are going to be difficult. Yeah. Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. So lately I have been receiving an uptick of messages regarding printing, specifically the way I handle my prints. And so that seems to be the big thing that's on everybody's mind lately. I keep receiving questions that are pretty much asked in the same way, just a little bit differently. So I decided to group together the most commonly asked questions that I've received over this last month and a half, group them together and then just answer them here in this video. So hopefully if you have printing questions, you will get your questions answered here within this video, and we are just going to get right into it. The first question comes from Don. He says, if I were to sell art on Etsy, would I sell prints of original pieces or just the original pieces? What is most successful? What did you start with? How are you currently selling pieces? I'm assuming, Don, what you mean by how are you currently selling pieces? How am I currently selling originals? So first of all, would I sell prints of original pieces or just the original piece on Etsy? You can do either or. There are artists who only sell originals on Etsy, and there are artists who only sell prints on Etsy. That is completely up to you. If you are just getting started on Etsy, I recommend that the most important thing that you do is get items in your shop on a regular basis. Keep adding items into your shop. If that means that you can add a print every few days or originals every few days, the most important thing is to keep your shop active. The more active you are in your shop, the more likely you are to get seen. So it really is a personal preference as to whether or not you want to do prints or originals. I personally sell my originals on Facebook. Most of the time, that is how I sell my work. I'm also involved in an online art auction group that I belong to, and I would say about 75 to 80% of my originals are sold within that group, with the remaining being sold as they are completed on my Facebook art page. I believe I answered all your questions, so thank you, Don, for asking that. The next one comes from Jonelle Vlogs, and she says, hi, Ellen, thank you for your video. How often do you print your art? How often do you get an ink refill, and how much does that cost you? Well, I print my art. How often I print depends on how often I get a sale. There are highs and lows to the seasons. You know, Christmas time is my busiest time of year. I am printing many prints a day for about 6 weeks on average during that time. So I go through a lot of ink during that time. It seems like after Christmas, around, I don't know, between the middle of January and the middle of the end of February, the beginning of March. Emmy, honey, Emmy is here, obviously. We're not going to stop this video. Every time I do, I lose my train of thought, so hopefully she'll just lay down. Lay down, please. Good girl. There's always a lull after Christmas, and then it picks back up usually mid-April when people are getting their tax refund checks. Not always, but really it just depends on how much ink I go through. Is always dependent on how many prints I make. And really, I mean, that's the thing about selling your own work and being in your own business. You can't always predict what the market is going to to do. If the market is strong and people are feeling very comfortable about spending their money, then I will sometimes go through an ink cartridge about every 2 weeks or so, I would say. Sometimes I'm not buying an ink cartridge for a month. So I know that it doesn't really answer your question very well, but again, it just really depends. Everything is just usually on a season by season basis. So I'm sorry that I can't answer that question a bit more specifically, but I hope. How much does that cost you? That I can answer. Every time that I purchase new ink, it runs about $16.99 per cartridge, and there are 8 cartridges in my Canon 100 series printer. You can get a deal if you buy them in packs, but you're not always going to need everything at once. Everything usually runs out at different times, and which is annoying. So it depends on what you can afford. If you can afford to spend $80 or $90 on 6 ink cartridges when there is a sale, then I would suggest stocking up that way. But personally, I buy mine as I need them because I would rather have that cash flow and not have everything tied up in ink. So thank you for your question, Janelle Vlogs. This next question comes from Eric. He says, do you have tips on how to actually make your prints? Do you use a service? Tips on how I make my prints. Well, I go about making my prints by scanning my work into a 3-in-1 printer, which means that it prints, it scans, and it copies. These are inexpensive printers. I have found mine on Amazon. Any of your office supply stores will have them, and they can run anywhere from $60 to $90. I think I paid like $84.99 for my Canon 3-in-1. I scan my work in usually between 300 and 400 DPI, and then I use a photo editing software such as Photoshop Elements, or I use PicMonkey, which is a very user-friendly website where you can store your images on their website and manipulate them as you need to. That is a subscription-based website. I can't remember how much it is per year. But there are other photo editing software sites that you can also use. It just depends on what your preference is. So once I edit everything and get them print ready, then I will just save it on my computer and then print it onto my 100 series Canon printer. So that's pretty much how I do it. He asks if I use a service, but I am going to answer this next question, which will tie into that. This is from Suzette. She says, I was watching your YouTube video about the printers you use and how you ship your art, and noticed the Canon you have prints, and noticed the Canon you have prints as wide as 13 inches. Though on your Etsy sizes, I noticed you have a 16 by 24 inch size or so. Do you use the same Canon, or do you have a larger printer or go to a print shop? Okay, so I'm going to try and decipher this question just a little bit better. She asks, I noticed with the Canon, meaning my Canon printer, that, okay, so I have paper. She must be talking about the paper. The paper that I have on my Canon 100 series printer that I print onto accepts paper that is 13 by 19 inches, yet she's saying that I have a larger size available on Etsy. So how do I go about creating those prints? That ties back into Eric's question as to whether or not I use a service. So, yes, it's true that I have paper that only goes up to 13 by 19 inches. That is the largest size that my Canon 100 series printer will accommodate. And the largest size that I am able to print on is 11 by 14. I choose that size because it is a standard size. I do that for my customers so that they don't have to get custom framing done when they purchase a print of mine. They can do it themselves by getting a standard size mat and or frame right off of the rack of any hobby store or any Walmart or Michael's or any department store. Usually these standard sizes are 5 by 7, 8 by 10, 11 by 14, 16 by 20, and so on and so forth. So I do offer 16 by 20 sizes on my Etsy shop. A lot of people have been asking for larger sizes because they want more commanding pieces for over the fireplace or as a statement piece in a living room or something like that. And an 11 by 14 just is not big enough. So I do outsource a printer for the sizes that I cannot print on my Canon 100 series printer. I want to make this size available to my customers, but I can't do it myself. I can't afford a printer that prints larger than the size that I currently offer, the largest size I can do, which was the 11 by 14. So I outsource a different a printing company for this size. And there is another question that ties into that also. This is the final question here. Rudy asks, why do you choose to digitally sign your 16 by 20 prints versus hand sign like the rest of the sizes? He's referring to my options on my Etsy shop. Have you ever attempted to ship a 16 by 20 print in a flat mailer versus rolled? Okay, so why I choose, if you happen to go to my Etsy site, you'll notice that I have anywhere from 5 by 7 to 16 by 20 sizes available. In my description bar, I always state that 16 by 20 sizes are a particular price, but they will be digitally signed. I always make this known to my customers. I add after that fact, I state if you would like a hand signed print, then you need to convo me or send me a message and I will give you a new price quote for that. So Rudy was asking, why is it that I do that? Well, again, that ties into the fact that I can't print 16 by 20 prints here in my home studio, so I have to outsource. Now, my printer that I outsource that size to, they drop ship those prints, which is one of the reasons why I really like this printing company. And what that means for those of you who don't know, it means that I will send the file to the printing company, they will print that size, and then they will send that print directly to my customer. It won't include the price, it won't include any unnecessary information. It makes it look like it is coming from my home studio when in fact it is coming from them. So that makes things a lot easier for me to handle my business and things like that. So the reason why I state in my Etsy shop that 16 by 20 prints will be digitally signed is because, and this is where it kind of gets complicated, but this was really the only way that I knew how to fix this solution. If I were to only offer hand-signed prints like I do for my smaller sizes, which I do offer hand-signed prints for 11 by 14s and smaller because they come from my home studio, and of course they're already here, so I'm going to hand sign them. But if I have a print that is being sent out from my printer in Texas and I live in Indiana, if I have to hand sign that print before it goes to my customer, then that means that I have to place the order with my printing service. It takes anywhere from 3 to 4 days to get that 16 by 20 print ready to ship. They would then have to ship that print back to me. And then once I get it, which could take anywhere from another 3 to 4 days, I would get the print, I would open it up, I would hand sign it, then I would have to package the print back up and then send it on to its final destination to my customer, which will take, I mean, even if I used priority mail service, it would take an additional 2 to 3 days to reach its final destination. So we are talking a long waiting time. Most people on Etsy, they do not want to wait that long. Number two, a lot of people don't care if it's a digital signature. They care more about the print and the fact that it's just signed in general, but they really don't have a preference as to whether or not it's hand signed or digitally signed. Some people do. I do have several people who will contact me and say, I need a new quote because I don't want a digital signature. I want you to hand sign this for me. Then I will go back and I will explain to them what is going to happen, that it's going to take anywhere up to 10 extra business days for them to get this print, and that I will have to add a nominal shipping fee attached to the original shipping fee, because my printer is going to have to send it to me, and then I'm going to have to then send it on to my customers, so I need to pass that extra shipping cost on to them. So that that was a long way to explain it, but that is precisely why I do it that way, and it just seems to work out better that way. My customer always knows what's happening, and they ultimately have the option of whether they want a digital signature and receive their print quicker, or if they want a hand-signed print, and even though it may take them a little bit more time. And the final question that Rudy asks, which is the final question of this video, is, have you ever attempted to ship a 16 by 20 print in a flat mailer versus rolled? I have attempted to ship larger works flat over the years, and I don't like it. That is just a personal preference. The reason why I don't like it is because I get too stressed out when things are shipped flat. No matter how hard I try to take care to make sure that something is not going to get, the corners aren't going to get bent, or it's not going to get stepped on. That has happened before. I have had one flat piece of artwork completely punctured through. It looked like someone took a pen and stabbed it all the way through to the other side. I know it wasn't a pen, because I don't think a pen could have done that much damage. Maybe it was a box cutter or something like that. I don't know. But I have had several instances where I've had larger prints and original artworks ruined because they were shipped flat. There's just more of a surface that has the potential of getting damaged when you ship things flat. Now, I know that a lot of people who work on canvas, they don't have any choice. They have to ship flat. A lot of artists, they will end up going to places like FedEx and having FedEx handle the shipping. That can really cut into your profit, though. A lot of customers may be okay with paying the excessive amount of shipping costs that FedEx would charge, but then again, you're pretty much guaranteed that the artwork is going to get there without any issue. And actually, FedEx has really great shipping boxes for works that are large. The work will actually hang inside the box, and it'll hang there without having touch. It won't be able to touch either side. It's suspended in the box, which is pretty cool, but it's also costly. And it depends on where you're shipping to also. I mean, if I ship to Arizona, costs so much more than if I'm shipping to California here from Indiana. I mean, it's like an extreme amount. So I would say do your research if you are going to use a service like FedEx before you actually go in there, because you might be really surprised at what you're going to have to pay. So I prefer to send everything in larger sizes rolled. I've never had an issue with those cylinder rollers. They're very rigid. It would take a lot of effort to bend one of those things. Unless a truck rolled on it, I can pretty much guarantee that it's going to get to its destination safely. And most people don't really mind, even though it is kind of a pain in the neck when you open it up. You know, it wants to roll back shut right away, but they do flatten out over time. It doesn't really take that long for that to happen. And I've never had a customer say, ugh, why do you ship these this way? It's so frustrating. You know, I think that they would just rather have their print arrive unscathed and in good working order. So I really don't ever get a problem with customers asking those types of questions. So anyway, guys, that's really all of the printing questions that I have for you. If anybody has anything to add as far as how you print, how you ship, or if you have any other questions that you would like to ask me, please feel free to list your comment down below. And once I get enough questions, then it's really just kind of nice to create videos like this where I answer a group of questions together. It makes it a lot easier for me, and it also makes it easier for you because it's easier for you to understand when someone is actually verbally explaining it than having to read a clunky email back. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.